I actually love the three of us.
Totally.
No, because it adds a little bit of flavor to the regular podcast.
For sure. Hi everyone, Sean here at Stewart & Co Real Estate. Today, I'm joined by not one, not two, but three members of the law firm Harridyal-Sodha. Liza, Keisha, and Ayo are going to tell me all about various aspects of law. We're going into things like trusts, company formations, wills, all the exciting stuff having to do with property purchases and sales. I'm looking forward to getting into it, and I hope you are as well. So without waiting another moment, let's go. I am delighted to be joined by the team at Harridyal-Sodha Associates, better known as Liza Law. Liza Harridyal, accompanied by Keisha Porchetta and Ayo Barnard-Rawlins, are going to give me the lowdown on all things legal and answer some questions that I hear a lot, and I'm sure that they do as well. So, welcome everyone.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
I guess my first question, which is I hear all the time, it's on the lips of a lot of people to whom I speak. For someone buying or investing in Barbados for the first time, what's the biggest thing they should understand about how the legal process works here?
Okay, Sean. So I guess you mentioned Ayo and Keisha. I just want to give you a little bit of idea of what they do in the firm.
Yes.
I am the principal of the firm. Ayo is actually the vice principal, but she's also the head of our real estate. And Keisha is actually the head of our corporate. Because we're a medium-sized firm for Barbados purposes, we tend to be a jack of all trades. Our firm just specializes in commercial company law and real estate and immigration and those sort of things. But we all have knowledge of what's going on in the firm and the different areas of practice.
Right.
Ayo deals with real estate, sleep with real estate, and breathe real estate.
Yep.
Keisha, I really am not sure what she does, but,
but she does it well.
But she does it superbly well. And I am there with a big stick.
Fantastic.
So we are delighted to be here and be happy to share our experiences with our clients, who affectionately refer to us as Charlie's Angels.
Excellent.
And,
I like it. I like it. So for someone buying or investing in Barbados for the first time, what's the biggest thing they should understand about how the legal process works?
I think I'm going to give that question over to Ayo because she gets it from the ground up with real estate. Yeah.
Okay, I would say the first thing they need to understand is that it's very different from their jurisdiction. We get lots of international clients from, USA, Canada, and the UK. Yeah. And the process over there is a lot different. It could happen in a week. I think just knowing that the timing is going to be different in Barbados.
Yes.
That's the major, one of our major questions.
And it's not from lack of the professionals, meaning the attorneys, trying to fast track that time. It's just the process is so indulgent that sometimes it's very difficult for us to fast track because we're dependent on different government, agencies or other personnel
that are outside of your control.
That are outside of our control.
Yeah.
So
and our process is more manual than it is. We
Right.
literally have to do searches and get things going as opposed to it being, a more digital process.
Fair enough. And I'm assuming that that's well worth knowing if your purchase or sale here is in any way aligned with a transaction in your home country, because there could be frustration on the other end if everyone is not aware of how things work and the timing.
Exactly.
So we spend a lot of time perfecting this memo that we send out to clients, just addressing every possible thing that they could encounter while they're purchasing. And I mean, some clients probably don't read the memo, but because we get asked the questions over and over again. But we feel that, we have discharged our duty by actually letting them know from A to Z what the process involves. Sometimes even that because it's such a foreign thing for them. For example, our exchange control, which a lot of people are not, familiar with. So they would see that and just breeze through it because it doesn't resonate.
Yes.
So we have to then, as we're going through the whole process, we kind of do a bit of a whole hand-holding experience.
Right.
So they're very much aware at each stage. And we're very good, I think, as a firm of being on top of things all the time and sort of, kind of giving clients a little bit more than they probably need in terms of information.
Okay.
But it's kind of predicting what the questions are going to be and what the challenges they're going to encounter. So we, with that in mind, with a prediction, we tend to sort of address it before they even come to us.
I'm sure that minimizes a lot of frustration.
It does. And in a real estate purchase or sale is an emotional thing. So we try to minimize that for them, right? And Ayo has done a great job with that. Keisha has done a great job with that. I personally don't actually handle real estate in the firm, but these two do.
Right, understood. And I guess that leads me onto the question where, and you touched upon it when you introduced everyone, you each lead different areas of the firm. How do your departments typically interact during a property transaction or development project? Is there a formula by which you follow, or is it individual to each transaction? How does it work interdepartmentally?
So I guess it depends on if a client is buying a straight real estate as opposed to using a corporate vehicle like a company or even a trust or whatever to do the purchase. So Ayo, has over the last 16, 17 years have pretty much figured out every aspect of real estate purchases and what could be coming at her. So she may not need to sort of interact with us as much, during the process. But we are, like you said, a small firm or a medium-sized firm. So we're very accessible to each other, and we have figured out what each other's expertise is. And one of the other things is maybe not so much expertise, what we like and what we dislike,
right.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
we do sort of communicate among ourselves quite a lot. I mean, there's only 3 of us here, but there are 5 of us at the firm working as we speak. So,
fair enough.
So we're very good with that.
Most of our business is generated from existing clients who come here and they're doing international transactions.
Yep.
And fall in love with this beautiful island and decide that they want to do something. And so, we may refer it to Ayo to work on if necessary, or I would work on it, or Liza would work on, that different
and that must also help, I'm sure,
when
you have a point of reference, as in a person with whom you've dealt before.
Exactly.
And so it makes the whole thing a little bit smoother, doesn't it?
Yes,
Seamless.
it does.
It does provide a comfort level for us because we could understand from a due diligence perspective where the wealth has been generated for that particular client.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's obviously becoming every day more and more of a factor.
It has always been there. We're just managing it differently now.
Right.
Yes.
So the real estate department would interact with the corporate department if there is a sale and purchase of shares, as Liza had mentioned, of an offshore entity or a local entity.
Right.
If it's a straight out real estate purchase, then there's no need to interact with the corporate department unless the buyer is incorporating a company to purchase that real estate.
Right. Okay.
So
makes sense.
that would be the crossover.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the most common legal misconceptions foreign buyers have about purchasing property in Barbados?
I think we kind of alluded to it in the beginning.
Time is the first thing. That's always something that I find is always the first question. It's always the most pressing matter. I need to close this on Friday when we started with a draft agreement for sale on Monday. Because of our legal process, the way our system is set up, that's not possible. Even with a cash purchase, you have to do your due diligence on the property. And furthermore, if the buyer is or the seller, they're selling or purchasing shares of an offshore entity. Then the due diligence is expanded even further because you're looking at due diligence being conducted on the real property as well as 2 companies, one company in Barbados and one company in a foreign jurisdiction.
Right.
And that structure is mainly used to and legally so, to avoid paying the property transfer tax and the stamp duty in Barbados.
Yeah. So the layers become they increase as you get further into the corporate setup.
So I always come back around
structure, right? That's been around for years. I notice more buyers are not necessarily opting for that structure anymore
because of AML and
because of
CPST.
Because of the cost of maintaining two entities as well.
Yeah.
And
so you save in one hand, but you're spending in the other.
Exactly. And it depends also on what is the purpose of your real estate purchases. You know, is it that you're intending to reside in that property? Is it that you're buying it to flip it right away? You know, things like that, which would determine the structuring.
Right. Understood. Okay.
So getting back, so time is one thing. And I mean, financing is also another thing. That persons need to consider. Some people are cash purchasers, others aren't. I mean, even the wealthy borrow money.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, they don't use their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that financing, that adds another layer of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Which again is out of everyone's control, apart from the person who's lending, the entity that's lending the money. Makes sense. I mean, what I've found as well, which is I'm not sure if it's unique to Barbados as a jurisdiction, but it's definitely not the case in the UK where I've sold property, is the difference in expectations and timelines, etc., as far as exchange is concerned and completion, where in the UK exchange happens and you know you've pretty well bought or sold that property. Completion is you're cleaning up. Whereas here, exchange is just one stop before you start to do a whole set of other work. And that completion date is movable.
And because we don't have the registered land system like the UK does, right? I mean, I did do my legal degree in the UK, and at that time, they were actually moving towards registering all of their lands. I think there's still some parts that are not, but because we don't have that, we have to go and investigate title and all of that, which is time consuming. It's a manual search, right? So it's, you know, whereas like I was buying property in Florida, for example, and you just go on their website and you see all the owners and everything with the property, the entire history of the property is there.
Wow.
And it's, you know, nobody could lie to you when they sold a property for whatever. It's all there, all the owners, everything, whether it's a mortgage, any encumbrance. I mean, that's a lay person doing the search. That can complete the search. You don't need a lawyer for that, right? But here it's obviously very different.
So in summary, I would say that when you're selling or buying in the Caribbean or in Barbados, you come equipped, in addition to everything else, with a sense of humor and some patience.
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Take note. Taking into account the various steps in a standard property sale from offer to completion, where do buyers or sellers tend to stumble?
For sellers, sometimes persons don't know where their original title deeds are. Because we are on an unregistered land system, you need to have your original title deeds.
Right.
So investigation of title, I usually describe it to clients as a family tree. You know, if that property changed hands 100 times, you have 100 deeds. And if you're the current owner, you have to have all 100. I mean, our Property Act does say title goes, you can go up to 20 years, but sometimes it may go even further.
Right.
So sellers need to know where their original title deeds are.
Okay.
Because if you don't have those, then they have to be restored. That's another layer of time.
Yeah, understood. And as an agent, really, as far as I'm concerned, best practice is for me to start managing that expectation when I take a seller on as a client. Because you're only going to say the same thing. If they haven't already spoken to you, they will, and that will be first and foremost.
And one of the other things we have seen is that people are left property in a will, and they just assume they own it because they were left it in a will. And so they proceed to sell it without actually having the will probated. So they don't actually own it. So then you have that
estate issues.
All of that estate issue. And as you know, it takes a little bit while to probate a will.
It's interesting you say that because, again, from an agent's perspective, if I haven't done my due diligence and I've taken a property on not knowing that it's able to be sold, I've wasted time, emotions, money, everything when we get to the stage that an offer has been accepted and it's been accepted on something that actually is not even close to being sold or being able to be sold. So I take that.
And these mistakes happen because you may know somebody, a potential seller, and you've known them for years. They've inhabited this property for years. They have, said they're the owner. You have no reason to believe they're not. And indeed they are. It's just a step that needs to be taken to get the probate done.
Right.
So you go on their word, and that happens a lot.
And is there a particular normal or usual time frame that probate would take, or does it really depend on the complexity? Oh, I'm seeing some smiles, so that sounds as though there's no real straight answer.
It depends. Ayo has some very interesting cases. She always has very interesting cases.
Yes, not just my clients.
We should do a separate conversation once about the weirdest, strangest
cases
you've ever done.
We have stories.
Right.
So, estate planning is always a good idea, first and foremost.
Yeah.
Estates, the time frame for estates can be anything. It depends on whether or not, there's a will or there is no will. Okay. We usually advise clients anywhere between
2 years, 3 years.
1 to 2 years.
Okay.
Wow. I personally, I feel that a probate of an estate with a will should take no more than 3 months.
Okay.
And an administration, this is without a will, should take no more than 6 months.
Okay.
But we do know we have a few challenges with the public service in terms of, staffing and whatnot.
Of course.
So, there's some challenges there
that have to be met and overcome.
And there are cross-border challenges too, where the deceased probably was not resident here, and then
so there may also be other issues.
There are other complexities that add to the timing and stuff.
Yeah.
So this leads me to an interesting point. Is there anything that you would recommend someone do to mitigate the amount of time it takes when someone passes away, which is inevitable? So for instance, yes, making a will is going to reduce that time.
That would be episode 6, Sean.
Right, that'll be okay. Gotcha. Okay, fair enough.
We have a whole
exactly. Right. Okay. Right. Okay.
But yes, there are steps.
There are things you should do in advance.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Watch out for episode 6. When a buyer is choosing their attorney, what should they be looking for beyond their credentials?
Effective and clear communication.
Okay.
Because we are all lawyers, so we already have passed that bar. But there are certain things that will make your process a lot easier.
Understood.
Someone who is willing to ask you the right questions, understand where you're coming from, and also explain the process to you.
And keep you updated.
And
keep everyone in the loop.
That's so important. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Credentials obviously goes a long way, and whether you're dealing with a single person as opposed to a firm, for example, and in dealing with a single person, you have to know chances are that person is going to get sick, that person is going to travel.
Very good point.
They're not going to be available all the time. So what we do in the firm, we always present ourselves as this dynamic trio, because if one of us is missing, the two of us can take over. And my idea with the firm is that nobody should call and say, "Oh, Ayo is on vacation, so we have no idea what's going on."
Right.
Things have to continue.
Yeah.
Their work has to continue. They didn't hire Liza, they hire everybody else. They're the whole firm. So that's why I think sometimes I'm not advocating for a firm by any means, but you have to bear in mind the advantages and disadvantages of dealing with a firm versus a single person. And, and then we have had reputational issues as well with client funds and things like that.
Well, so the two things I take from that, or one being I've experienced frustrated transactions where a lawyer has gone on holiday or been sick and everything comes to a grinding halt. And it's no fault of, let's say, the lawyer who's off sick. You're only human. Yeah. But if there's no one there to back it up, it can cause a lot of frustration for everything and everyone involved. And the other good point, which is well worth noting, especially to a foreign buyer, is to double check, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that not all law firms, especially the small ones, may have a foreign currency account.
That's true.
There are ways to get around it, obviously, but we have facilitated that for the other side sometimes.
Right. Understood.
But there are ways to get around that. But yes, it does.
Also very important.
It does present a challenge because the other side end up with funds that should have been in trust or in escrow. We would then have access to that, right?
Understood.
So it's not the ideal thing, but there are definitely, depending on which law firm you're dealing with and which lawyer, if you trust them and things like that. If you have a good professional relationship, then.
Yeah. Okay. How has the legal landscape around property, title issues, land ownership structures changed in the past few years, if at all?
I think the due diligence part of it has been the biggest, because real estate agents now have to make sure that they vet their clients before, and each lawyer acting for the buyer and the seller. So that has become sometimes an area of challenge because several clients can get frustrated, everybody asking them for the same information.
Yes.
And right now we are not able to rely on another service provider's due diligence. We kind of have to make sure we have our own to make sure it's adequate and we do our searches. So that to me, I think, is one of the biggest.
Yeah, and I mean, the AML stuff has been around for a while, but it's now more enforced because, firms, us as licensed service providers can get fined and so on for not having that information on file. Plus, again, going back to reputation, we want to make sure that we're dealing with reputable clients. So that's the only way. And one of the good news, as Ayo mentioned earlier, is that a lot of the clients that we have are existing clients. So we would have checked them out quite a bit before, we decide to go ahead with a real estate purchase. Obviously, there is a lot of red flags depending on how this person wants to move money around or things like that. But we are always very vigilant with that.
Estate agents having a part now versus before is relatively new, and people are still coming to grips with an extra layer of administration that they never had to entail. And when I worked in London, we definitely noticed frustration when we had to start doing due diligence on the buyer. Where before, we had to do due diligence on the seller with whom we had a legally binding contract.
Right.
The buyer was less so. And then when that was introduced, it was very, very interesting how easily frustrated the buyer became simply because they weren't used to it. And agents, by the same token, were frustrated because it wasn't something they were doing for a buyer. Now, all of that due diligence has to be done again with the buyer. And so agents are frustrated, the buyer is frustrated simply because it's something new. I see that obviously things are evolving here, and as an agent, it will slowly but surely become the norm. But as a law firm, I guess you're used to it and how to manage that appropriately, and it's probably, highly likely much more seamless than it is versus the agents who are still trying to make it work effortlessly.
When we as lawyers manage the due diligence process, it's actually a lot easier than if we have our AML person, our department there manage it. They're so strict.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we're a little bit more, okay, your passport is going to expire tomorrow. We're going to give you a chance to renew your passport.
Right.
They were like, no, we're not taking it. We have an inflexibility as well within our firm that we have to work with sometimes.
Right.
If
because we get audited. And
of course.
So it's very understandable.
Yeah.
There's another change that is, there were a few colloquiums held during this year where the government is proposing to implement a digital system for conveyancing, sale and purchase of property.
Okay.
I think that, it is some way away, but at least they've opened up the conversation.
Okay.
So, number one, resuming the registration of land process, which would help greatly in terms of doing the due diligence on properties. Because with the registered land system, you get one document, a certificate of title that states all of your covenants, and it states everything that you need to know, as opposed to those 100 title deeds, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That would be very helpful. For example, there was a proposal to all the condominium developments when a developer is submitting an application for a condominium development, they should go straight to registered land. It makes doing title so much easier because you have one piece of land with 10 units on it.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So those are some things that were mentioned in the colloquiums earlier this year, as well as the ability for the land registry to have a system where attorneys can do the due diligence electronically, do searches at the land registry electronically, just like how you do it with KIPO. So those are not in place right now, but they're proposals that I am very keen to see when they will start and to work with them.
Yeah.
It starts with the idea, let's try and get it done, which I guess is something to hold on to.
And I think one of the things that happened informally was the exchange of documents electronically.
Right.
Because before we literally were delivering our agreements to the different firms.
That,
it's a small island, so that was
change.
But now,
but we still need legislation that governs electronic signatures. Right.
Interesting. Okay. Right.
So because on a conveyance, for example, you still need a wet signature. You can't have an electronic signature. So you're still dealing with, sending that document to the client in Switzerland via Federal Express. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess that legislation will come when they're
eventually
looking at it.
Yeah. And I mean, again, another interesting point, because that particular step, which is a wet signature versus electronic, that is a layer of time that someone just is not taking into consideration.
Yes, notarization is also
you have to make appointments with the notary.
So that's days.
Not only that, notaries in different, especially civil jurisdictions, they actually act not just as a witnesser. They literally need to understand the documents, and so sometimes we get pushed back on our documents.
Read the documents.
Yeah, and so we've had some interesting scenarios.
Yeah,
already.
It's so interesting how much time can be affected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without even thinking about it. And
exactly.
That's just one element,
like
which is a signature.
Itself back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other good news, though, is that we've seen a slight relaxation of exchange controls, which allow foreign currency to come into the island, be registered, remain in foreign currency. So you're able, the property market becomes a little bit more competitive because you're able to pay in U.S. currency, notwithstanding the fact that Barbados is legally Barbadian dollars, but you're able to do that. So foreign purchasers or sellers, really, because they're the ones that need the U.S. currency back what they brought in, right?
Yes,
so
of course.
It does kind of help the whole system a little bit to become a little bit simpler. At least that's what I've noticed.
Slowly but surely.
So we're getting there. We're getting there.
Right, fair enough. We're seeing more people using companies or trusts to hold property. In what situations does that actually make sense, and when is it unnecessary?
What is your intention?
Episode 6.
Episode 6. Okay, fair enough.
In a nutshell, I always ask clients, what is your intention with the property? Right. We touched on it a bit earlier. Yeah. So your estate planning, are you leaving this to your kids? You want to have it in a trust. Are you going to rent it, or are you going to live there?
Right.
Are you going to keep it for 5 years and turn it over? So
is it tax driven?
Yeah, right. Yes, because we spoke about the offshore structure, right? And yes, you do not pay the property transfer tax and stamp duty, but you also have to maintain 2 companies.
Yes.
So you're looking long term spending versus the short term payment,
cost.
right? So what is your intention? Is the first thing I normally ask.
Am I right in understanding that your personal tax circumstance in your home country will also dictate what you do with your purchase and ownership here?
And that would be the first thing we tell any potential, purchaser that make sure that you get tax advice in your jurisdiction.
Right.
Yeah. And also to do a separate will in Barbados if you have Barbados.
Of course. Property. Yes, exactly. A lot of buyers from the US, UK, and Canada are exploring Barbados. What kind of tax or residency considerations typically come up in those early discussions with your team?
It goes back to intention. What is it that they're buying the property for? If it is that they want to move to Barbados, then there are various ways that they can move here and reside here. One, we have the special entry permit for people who are buying properties for US 2 million or more.
Yes.
And has 5 million or more in assets, worldwide, which would include the 2 million. They are allowed to reside here as, I guess, the first instance, depending on their age, for 5 years, and then it can be renewed.
Yep.
If they need a work permit during that time as well, they can also apply for a work permit.
Okay.
But most of the times people are buying, especially post-COVID, what we've seen is that a lot of people are buying properties to go on the Airbnb market, for example, right? And it doesn't really depend on the level of the property or what value it is. Everyone wants to rent out their property because it is expensive to maintain property, especially if it's not your primary home.
Yep.
So they want to at least have some of their expenses offset.
Yes.
Right. So, so we've seen a lot of buyers who are really keen to establish relationships with the same agent they might be using for property management as well going forward. So we do see that a lot.
And the truth is Barbados does not have citizenship by investment. So those persons who have heard that, the islands offer that, that's one of the things we have to let them understand. That,
yes, of course.
But we are also one of the jurisdictions where there are no restrictions on foreigners purchasing property here. So they can purchase it and, reside here if they want. So that's there are quite a few benefits.
And that's a big factor that doesn't exist here and exists in other jurisdictions.
We have exchange control consideration. So, non-resident purchasing property will get permission from the Central Bank of Barbados, the Exchange Control Department.
Yep.
But it's really a formality. We do that. The attorney does that. It's just really rubber stamp saying, hey, you brought in the funds. Okay, you can go ahead and purchase.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is not the equivalent to
permission or approval.
Right.
The landholding license in some of the jurisdictions, like
more
St. Lucia or
acknowledgement.
whatnot, is more
Yes.
Yeah.
Understood. For someone looking at Barbados, not just as a second home, but as part of their wider relocation or tax planning, when should they involve their legal and financial advisors across jurisdictions?
From the time they thought about it.
Yeah.
The moment
From
they
day one.
thought,
Right.
Because they can't do anything without finding out what is possible, right?
Understood.
And so yes, and we would definitely recommend that they see their tax advisor first in the jurisdiction from where they're from before they, stumble into Barbados. We're good at sorting them out once they get here, but it's making sure that they get here in a cleanest possible way for them to exit wherever they're from.
And also, they need attorneys to do the legal process of purchasing property here.
Yes.
So that's something that they need to, because maybe that's not required in other jurisdictions, but that is a requirement.
Okay, understood.
And then we tag on the work permit sometimes and the land purchase or the special entry permit. So everything is like a whole package at the same time.
Right, okay.
We have quite a few of those actually we're working on at the moment.
What are the biggest red flags you wish buyers and sellers would pay attention to earlier in the process?
Yeah, knowing where your needs are.
Yes.
Knowing where your money is.
Yeah.
And how you're purchasing.
How you're purchasing.
Right.
You need financing.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
And if you need financing, make sure you actually go to the bank to find out how much you qualify for prior to looking for a property. Because you may say, hey, I wish I want this $1 million property, and you only qualify for 100,000.
Right.
So that's
and
also
the
very
sellers
important.
need to understand that too, that the person purchasing does have the financing, because
of course,
you don't
absolutely.
You don't want to go down there.
It may be helpful for a seller to perhaps have a valuation, be it formal or informal, of their property to put it on the market prior to putting it on the market.
Very good advice.
Because that eliminates a lot of the back and
Gray
forth
area and
negotiations and
great
price
advice.
and so on. And know the property.
And know the property. Yes.
Know the property.
Know what you're buying.
Get service.
That's not very well done here, actually.
Right.
A lot of people don't walk through and then they just kind of go, oh, I love this property and we're going to get it. They don't really go to the nitty-gritty of that property like they do in other jurisdictions, right?
Yeah.
So that might be a new thing for you guys, Sean. That's going to be
absolutely.
level to your,
absolutely,
to
yes.
your piece.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and you're right. I was surprised when I moved back here, the lack of expectation of a survey, which again, in other jurisdictions, that is the norm. It's an expectation.
Yeah.
It's all part of the process.
Not the land. This is not the
This is a structural survey
Structural,
or
yes.
something to
property.
show that the building isn't going to fall down tomorrow.
Yes.
And as you said, Liza, I was surprised that it wasn't something that is the norm in the transaction here.
I feel there's going to be a move towards that.
Right.
To be honest, and that's one of the things if you were asking earlier, what do we see coming? I think that's going to be coming because there's a lot more sort of condominium type of product going on the market.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're going to see that. I just think that's going to happen. People are going to want to understand how does this building work, right? And things like that, which will get very deep into the actual fabrication of the building.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And it comes back to what Ayo said earlier. The communication is important when the initial talk with the clients.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Things like, are you purchasing the property with furniture or no furniture?
Right.
Like, what's your understanding of what it is that you're actually purchasing?
Yes.
Because that has created issues.
Listen,
over a painting.
Yes.
Which is meaningless, but it has meaning to the seller
and to the buyer sometimes.
Well, the buyer has no meaning to my painting. It's like
yes.
But they get stressed out over this one piece of painting missing from the wall that they can fill quite easily, and it will hold up a transaction. I and I've had this experience in our episode 6. We'll share this.
Right, okay. I can't wait for this.
So it's it becomes thing for the buyer where they walk in and they see a painting on the wall and they automatically think that's
part of it
because you say you're selling it furnished.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That kind of conversation.
Yes, another good point where I personally, having experienced some of this frustration that your team experience probably more than I do, but the value of an inventory of what's being sold. Detailed inventory is just, in my mind as an agent, it is worth its weight in gold.
That's correct. Absolutely. And this is where the problem actually arises a lot of times, Sean, is from the agency with that little offer letter that they sign, furniture is included, but there's no room for exclusion or of anything in there, right?
Yeah.
Always should be subject to a few pieces being removed or whatever. So this becomes, does that document form a part of a legal agreement, right? So, so we've had a few challenges, and that's why we insist on an inventory, especially where furniture and fittings are
quite right. When it comes to development projects, villas, apartments, small communities, what are the biggest legal hurdles developers underestimate? I
don't know about legal hurdles, but I'll just tell you some of the hurdles that I've seen them experience. One, it's budget. Always, 2, it's timing. Never completing a project on time. In terms of legal, the legal part will be ironed out at the beginning of the project, and doing a condominium declaration and all of that.
Yes.
But I don't know that
time too.
It's just
because
time.
Yeah, because your buyer has an expectation. Everybody has an expectation set out in this contract, your building agreement and your sale agreement.
Yes.
If you don't stick to those timelines, then a buyer who has plans to rent out their property by X date can't do that because the developer is not finished.
Yep.
So how am I going to be compensated by the developer for having to wait another 6 months for my project to be completed, right?
And then that stage, the developer would have had substantially all of the proceeds. I mean, maybe less 10% or something like that.
Right.
And, these extended delays. So it's, is it fair?
With the developers with whom I've worked, there have been penalty clauses built into those contracts. Is that standard or is that something that can sometimes be there or not?
Not
is that
penalty really, but liquidated damages.
Right.
But
Okay.
Yes. I mean, we advise our clients to anticipate all of these different challenges that will possibly come up, because I know we are optimistic and we want to get it done.
Yeah.
But some of it is out of their hands. Sometimes
hurricanes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Inclement weather,
shortage of materials. Exactly.
So for sure.
You try to think of every eventuality and how that ties into what you're offering, and making sure that your product is the best it can be, and so people want to purchase it.
And again, that will differ and be the difference between a mediocre and a good, thorough law firm. Because they are going to cover their client as best as they can.
Sometimes we get pushback, right? Because you're having these documents in a development that applies to every single purchaser. So, they're not going to normally accept our pushback on certain things because 90% of their other purchases haven't.
Don't get put right. Understood.
Right. So
Understood.
So sometimes we get stuck, even though with the best advice we can't go any further. Then the client has to decide whether they still wish to proceed based on
Understood.
On this. But I do think developers should be a little bit more realistic with their timing, understanding. Most of them, this is not the first time they're doing a project. So they would anticipate all the things that could go wrong, and things can go right too, right? And then just kind of add a little time into there. So people are not always saying, well, this project is going to be late. It's somebody says to me something is completing in June. I'm thinking, okay, December.
Right.
Why do I naturally go there? Right?
Yes. No, it makes sense. Makes sense. Better under promise and over deliver.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Makes sense. Can foreign buyers obtain a mortgage or other financing in Barbados?
There are obviously some challenges, but most of the banks will offer a sort of 50% maybe financing.
Okay.
Maybe not as 90%, but a 50% depending on the home and the collateral and the security and all of that.
Okay.
But they can. I mean, I think sometimes foreign purchasers have a better time with the banks than we do locally.
Fair enough.
Because they have the banks can see their assets a little bit better, which
of
is
course.
Then
It's a bit more transparent.
It's a bit more transparent. Yes, the foreign purchasers, they also find the banks a little challenging to deal with. And everything is timing, and I think this is kind of like the thing we're talking about
the common theme. Yes,
the common theme,
it's
just timing. And just because a bank says, "Oh, you're good for a mortgage," don't listen to them. Wait till everything is signed. Wait till you have the. It's crazy.
Right.
They're the ones that definitely overpromise.
I've witnessed it many a time. Again, just to back up what you're saying, you may be approved based on what the bank sees you as an individual can afford. Nothing to do with the value of the property, which doesn't happen until you see the property. So you think you can borrow this amount, but actually, as far as the property is concerned, you can't, because it's not worth what you think you can spend.
Once they do their evaluation, then they're like, sorry, this is what we think it is, and so you were going to have to put more money and then it gets challenging.
Okay, well worth noting.
And a lot of times the foreign purchasers, they can buy the property outright, with their funds. It's just an extra layer of tax planning that they introduce into their whole structure to make sure that their financing is working for their benefit.
Yes,
right.
Understood.
So it's
as efficient as possible.
It's as efficient as possible.
Right.
I'm getting a 4%, mortgage rate where I'm making 15% on this investment, right?
Yes.
So it's in some cases a no-brainer.
Understood.
Not everybody that goes to ask for a mortgage actually needs
a mortgage. Makes sense. Absolutely. I've heard that Barbados may be considering residency by investment through property ownership. Do you see this happening, and is this attractive for investors?
It's a good rumor. And we certainly hope that that's the case, because with the influx of property coming on the market, a lot of condominiums sort of type of property, which has a lesser value than most single homes, but still carry a high value depending on where it's located, in the ocean. A lot of those purchases, even if their intent is not actually to reside in Barbados, it still is a good benefit for them, something that they can think about for the future.
Bit of peace of mind.
It's a bit of peace of mind. And residency, it's very different from citizenship that other islands own. So that other islands, deal with. But the residency here would mean I own a property, I have a right to live in it.
Understood. What about real estate investment trust, or REITs? Do you think that, given the difficulty in obtaining financing by developers, that this should be considered?
Absolutely. This is something that I wrote an article in 2013 about. So, when I was a wee child, and I recognize the importance of it, mainly because it's been used so widespread in North America and Singapore and Europe and those places.
Okay.
But REITs kind of focus a lot on commercial properties too, not necessarily residential, but a development like a sort of condo hotel type of development would be perfect for REITs, because it just allow all sorts of people to be able to invest. People with, $5, you can set the limit, obviously, right? And they make a good return on their investment without necessarily owning any property, but they're investing in the infrastructure of, so I think this is the way to go. I think when the banks are starting to have issues with financing a certain project, maybe one developer has overextended his or her, how should I say, capacity, then they can look for, REITs to help them. And REITs can come in so many different ways. It could be a trust, it could be a partnership, it could be a company. I mean, it's a very, very flexible thing. It can set investment parameters. It can do, it can be
There's a lot of scope.
It's a lot of scope for it. And I'm definitely an advocate for it because,
Is there an appetite that you've seen?
I think more people are asking the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're hoping that the policymakers will really
take it on board.
Start taking it
Yeah.
on board.
Yeah.
I know that was something that would have been considered in the past, and hopefully we will see some action, because I think it will bring foreign investment to the island in a very big way, especially for those properties that we see sometimes around that could really do with somebody taking on the challenge and the risk of refurbishing, and even the historical properties. If we could get some stuff going on there, that would really help. And
it's an interesting point, actually.
It will help the economy, because the little man can also get some benefit from investing.
Make money from whatever money they have.
Yeah,
exactly.
Makes sense.
As Barbadians living here, we have very limited things that we could invest in, in Barbados. So that would be a very good thing for us.
Another element.
It's like they say, oil don't spoil, soil don't spoil either, right?
Yeah.
So
I like that.
So, to me, that's a guaranteed investment.
Okay.
And, it's a no-brainer.
Interesting.
And if this podcast is a plug for it, by all means.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think I've covered pretty well everything I wanted to ask. I have no doubt there'll be other questions at some point, and if there are people watching that want to hear things, by all means, let me know. I'm very open to suggestion as to what you want to hear. But for now, I really want to thank wholeheartedly Liza, Keisha, Ayo for taking the time to come and have a chat with me and just give some invaluable info, which I know people find extremely helppful. So thank you so much. Going forward, if someone wants to get a hold of you in the firm, how do they do that?
We have a website, Sean, that has all the lawyers, our qualifications, LizaLaw.com. But just Google my name, Google Ayo.
Perfect.
It's there. It's all there.
And our email address is info@LizaLaw.com.
Info@LizaLaw.com.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much for joining me here.
Thank you for having us.
I think another episode's in the works. I really do.
We're ready. We're stay fine.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.